I never thought my life would take such a drastic turn. My name is Jake, and I guess you could say I was living the American dream: decent job, a nice home, and a beautiful wife named Sarah. We had been married for 5 years, and for the most part things were smooth sailing. But recently, things changed, and I could feel it. Little signs here and there, a text message that Sarah quickly put away, odd late-night meetings, and a sudden obsession with TikTok. At first, I brushed it off as just part of her exploring a new hobby, but as the days turned into weeks, my gut told me something was off. I remember the first time I noticed Sarah acting strange. It was a Saturday morning, and I had planned on making pancakes for breakfast. I found her in the living room, scrolling through her phone, giggling. Not the usual sweet laugh that I loved, but more of a flirty giggle. I peered over her shoulder and saw a video of some guy, a TikTok influencer, doing some ridiculous dance. Sarah looked enthralled, commenting, "He's so funny." I felt a twinge of something, jealousy maybe, but I brushed it off. After all, it was just a silly app, right? But things escalated quickly. Sarah would spend hours in the bathroom, and when I asked her about it, she always had an excuse ready. "I'm just trying to get ready for our dinner with friends," or "I'm just practicing a dance for TikTok." I thought it was cute at first until I found her phone charging on the kitchen counter one evening. Normally she would take it with her everywhere, but this time it was left behind. Curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't resist. I picked it up. I expected to see the usual selfies and funny videos, but instead I found messages between Sarah and this influencer, a guy named Tyler. They were flirty, full of inside jokes and emojis. It made my stomach turn. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I decided then and there to confront her. But first, I needed more evidence. I started doing my homework, watching her social media, keeping tabs on her behavior. What I found was a tangled web of deceit that I never expected. One night, I decided to follow her. I had a hunch she was meeting up with Tyler, and I wasn't wrong. I parked a few blocks away from a trendy little bar they often frequented, my heart racing as I waited. When I saw her walk in hand with Tyler, my heart sank. There was no mistaking the chemistry between them. I felt rage boiling within me, but I also felt a strange sense of helplessness. I wanted to burst in there, scream, and drag her out, but I had to keep my cool. I needed a plan. That weekend, I confronted her. I didn't pull any punches. I laid it all out: the messages, the late nights, her unaccountable behavior. The look on her face was a mix of surprise and guilt. "Jake, it's not what it looks like," she insisted, but I could see through her lies. She tried to claim it was all just innocent fun, that Tyler was nothing more than an online friend. But deep down, I knew it was a lot more than that. Her reaction only fueled my anger. "It's just a phase. I love you and I'm sorry." She kept repeating, but those words felt empty. The emotional roller coaster was intense. I went from furious to heartbroken in a matter of moments. I couldn't comprehend how she could betray me like this. My heart felt heavy, like it was being crushed under the weight of betrayal. I wanted to scream, to cry, to punch something. As the days passed, the anger transformed into a deep sadness. I found myself questioning everything: our love, our life together. All those sweet moments now felt tainted. I was lost, but I knew I had to make a decision about my future. Did I want to salvage this marriage, or was it time to say goodbye to the woman I thought I knew? I started mapping out my options, weighing the pros and cons of staying versus leaving. And in that emotional turmoil, a new idea began to form, one that would change everything. As I sat there in the silence of our home, I felt a strange mix of anger and determination brewing inside me. Sarah, the woman I'd built my life with, had chosen to betray me with a TikTok influencer of all people. It felt ludicrous, almost like a plot twist in a bad movie. But instead of wallowing in pain, I decided to take control. I realized that I wasn't going to let her affair define me. After our confrontation, Sarah was on the defensive. She kept trying to convince me that it was just a distraction, that she needed something more in her life, whatever that meant. I wasn't about to buy her excuses, especially not when I had the damning evidence on my side. The emotional manipulation was palpable, but I had to stay strong. I couldn't allow her to twist the narrative anymore. Instead, I began to devise a plan. I had been watching Sarah obsessively scroll through TikTok, posting her lip-sync videos and trendy dances. I realized I could leverage that platform for myself. If she could get attention from a guy like Tyler, why couldn't I? I had skills too, writing, storytelling, and a knack for humor that I'd kept mostly hidden. I decided to create my own TikTok channel. But instead of simulating the same content as Sarah, I would focus on something different: real-life experiences, relatable content, and a hint of sarcasm that would resonate with people. With renewed purpose, I poured my energy into building this platform. I started recording videos, sharing snippets of my life and how I was navigating this unexpected turn of events. I opened up about dealing with betrayal, my journey towards self-improvement, and the ups and downs of love. I quickly found that I had a knack for connecting with people. The videos resonated with an audience that appreciated authenticity and vulnerability. At first, it was slow going. I'd record a video and post it, only to see a couple of likes trickle in at best. But I didn't let that discourage me. The more I shared, the more I connected with others who had experienced similar heartaches. I began to gain a following, and with that, a sense of empowerment washed over me. This was my way of taking back control over my narrative. Meanwhile, Sarah's obsession with Tyler continued. I could see the changes in her, how she became increasingly distant and began spending more nights out under the guise of working late. Every time she left, I felt a mix of anger and determination to outshine her. I was done being the victim in this situation. Then it happened. One day, while I was filming a video in our living room, Sarah walked in, and I could see the look on her face. She was surprised to see me busy with my phone, but I merely smiled back at her as I continued recording. I was sharing a story about resilience and the importance of moving forward. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs, I said, looking directly at the camera, but it's how we choose to respond that defines us. I meant every word. After I posted that video, it went viral. People were sharing their stories, commenting on how they related to my experiences. The sense of community was electrifying. And that was when I realized I could use this momentum to really shake things up. I began to think bigger. I wanted to create a series where I could take on some of the ridiculous aspects of social media relationships, poking fun at the influencer culture that Sarah had become so enamored with. I started developing skits that highlighted the absurdity of modern dating, the unrealistic standards portrayed online, and the pain of betrayal. The more I produced, the more followers I garnered. And as my online persona grew, so did my confidence. I noticed that Sarah was becoming increasingly agitated. She'd scroll through her TikTok feed and see my face popping up, the comments pouring in about how relatable I was. It was as if my success was a constant reminder of her betrayal, and I couldn't help but relish that. I began to get messages from people who had been through similar situations, praising me for my openness and vulnerability. I was no longer just Jake, the husband who'd been cheated on. I was becoming someone people looked up to, and it felt liberating. I could see the jealousy in Sarah's eyes whenever I shared my content, but instead of confronting her, I continued to build my platform. This was my form of revenge, not some petty act of destruction, but a way to rise above the ashes of betrayal and create something meaningful. The emotional high from the growing success was intoxicating, but amid all the excitement, I knew I had to consider my next steps carefully. Would I confront Sarah again? Would I allow her back into my heart? Or was I better off without her, focusing solely on my new journey? As I pondered these questions, I felt an unfamiliar sense of clarity. I was done being the victim. I was ready to embrace my new reality. As my TikTok platform continued to grow, I found myself in a constant state of reflection. I was riding a roller coaster of emotions, from empowerment and elation to moments of doubt and introspection. My followers were engaging with my content, sharing their own stories, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a genuine sense of purpose. I had turned my pain into something powerful, and that felt incredibly rewarding. But amid this whirlwind of success, I had to face the reality of my situation with Sarah. She could no longer deny the impact my new venture was having on both of us. The more I succeeded, the more she retreated into her own world, a world where she increasingly leaned on Tyler. I caught her at odd times late at night, scrolling through her messages, exchanging flirty texts with him. I could see the way her smile lit up when she thought I wasn't looking. I was torn. Part of me wanted to confront her again, but I also felt like any discussion would be met with the same empty apologies and justifications. I needed to be strategic, so I kept building my brand. I leaned into the humor of my situation, creating content that highlighted the ridiculousness of dating in the age of social media. I started a series called Influencer Reality, where I would mock the overly curated lives that influencers presented online. I parodied Sarah's TikTok dances and exaggerated the petty dramas that unfolded in influencer culture. The more I did it, the more confident I became. People started to see my videos as both entertaining and thought-provoking, but it wasn't just about the content. I began to receive messages from viewers about how my journey resonated with them. I was helping others who had also been betrayed or felt lost in their relationships. I started to feel like I wasn't just healing for myself. I was helping others heal too. It was a beautiful cycle of empowerment. Meanwhile, Sarah's demeanor shifted. I could tell she was becoming more desperate as she watched my online presence grow. One evening, she came home later than usual, hair tousled and makeup slightly smudged, a clear sign that she had been with Tyler again. I had been filming a new video when she walked in and I decided to keep rolling. I caught her reaction as she saw my latest TikTok gaining traction. The disbelief and jealousy were palpable and I couldn't help but smirk. "Hey Sarah, you might want to check this out," I said, turning my phone toward her to show the number of likes and comments I was getting. People really seemed to love it. She forced a smile, but I could see her frustration bubbling under the surface. "That's nice, Jake," she said, her voice lacking sincerity. "Maybe you should focus on that instead of your marriage." Her comment struck me. It was almost as if she was trying to deflect the reality of what she had done instead of taking responsibility. "You're the one who's had a little extra fun lately, remember?" I shot back, unable to contain my anger. "You're not in any position to lecture me about focus." The tension in the room escalated, and for a moment I thought we would have a real conversation. But instead, Sarah retreated into her default mode, denial and deflection. "You just don't understand, you're making this about you," she exclaimed, her voice rising. This was supposed to be a fun distraction. "Fun distraction," I echoed, incredulous. "You're cheating on me, Sarah. This isn't some trivial hobby, this is our life." The confrontation ended just as it began, with her storming out of the room, slamming the door behind her. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. The emotional roller coaster was relentless. I thought about how I had transformed my pain into something productive, while she continued to run away from the consequences of her actions. Yet, I would not let her derail me. I poured my energy into creating more content, pushing my followers to think critically about relationships and the influence of social media on their lives. I shared more of my story, my feelings, and the journey of healing that I was on. Each video became a cathartic release, and the outpouring of support from my followers felt like a warm embrace. But just when I thought I was gaining clarity, Sarah dropped another bombshell on me. One evening, she sat me down, her eyes glassy with tears. "Jake, I think we need to talk about the future," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I braced myself for what was coming. "Are you finally going to take responsibility for what you've done?" I asked pointedly. No, it's not like that," she stammered. I think we should take a break. I need some time to figure things out." The words hung in the air like a thick fog. A break. The same kind of break that would give her more time to see Tyler. I felt my heart race with disbelief. "You want a break, for what? So you can go be with him?" She fell silent, and in that moment I realized I had the upper hand. I had the power to set my own terms. "Sarah, if you need a break, then I think you should take it, but don't expect me to wait around for you," I replied calmly, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. What did a break even mean? Should I give her that opportunity to come back at all? I had started to see the cracks in our relationship, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of the end. I had regained my confidence and strength through my online presence, and now I had to decide whether or not I wanted to hold on to what was left of my marriage or let it go completely. In the days that followed, I continued creating content and engaging with my audience, but there was a nagging feeling of uncertainty. I was on a path of self-discovery and empowerment, yet I still had to confront the reality of Sarah's betrayal. What would it take for me to truly move on? I felt like I was living two lives, one as a public figure finding strength through vulnerability, and the other as a husband grappling with betrayal and the potential end of my marriage. It was time to figure out what I wanted moving forward. In the following weeks, I threw myself into my TikTok platform like it was my lifeline. Videos that once felt like a creative outlet transformed into therapy sessions. I shared my journey, the ups and downs, and how I was handling the fallout of Sarah's betrayal. My followers engaged with my content, offering support and sharing their own stories of heartbreak. Each interaction served as a reminder that I wasn't alone, even though my wife had chosen to distance herself from reality. To distract myself from the chaos at home, I began collaborating with other creators who focused on relationship topics. I invited guests to share their experiences with infidelity, heartbreak, and recovery. It felt good to connect with others who had traveled similar paths and to create a community centered around healing and resilience. The more I poured into this venture, the more I felt I was discovering who I truly was outside of my marriage. But Sarah's presence lingered in the background, a constant reminder of what I was trying to escape. She would occasionally come home late, reeking of perfume, and I could feel the tension in the air. Part of me wanted to confront her, to ask her about her time with Tyler, but I knew deep down that it wouldn't change anything. She'd likely spew the same excuses, telling me how confused she was and how she was just trying to find herself. Each time she entered the room, I felt like I was suffocating in memories of who we used to be. One evening, I received a message from a follower who wanted to meet. Her name was Mia, and she had been vocal in the comments about her own struggles with a cheating partner. We decided to grab coffee, and I found myself looking forward to it. I needed to talk to someone outside of my circle, someone who could provide a fresh perspective. When we met, Mia was warm and friendly. She had a way of making me feel at ease, and over our cups of coffee, we talked about everything: relationships, heartbreak, and the complexities of love in the age of social media. She spoke candidly about her own experience and how she had taken her pain and turned it into something positive, much like I was doing. I shared my story, and in the process I began to realize just how much I had grown. Mia listened intently, offering advice and encouragement. "You're doing something incredible," she said, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "You're helping others heal while healing yourself. Don't lose that momentum." Her words stuck with me. I had been so focused on the pain of my relationship with Sarah that I hadn't fully allowed myself to appreciate the journey I was on. I felt a wave of clarity wash over me, and it was refreshing to talk openly with someone who understood. As the sun set that evening, I walked back home feeling lighter. I had gained insight, and the interaction sparked a new idea for my next video. I wanted to create a series that addressed self-love, particularly for those who had been betrayed. I wanted to emphasize that healing was not just about moving past the hurt but also about rediscovering oneself. When I got home, however, I was met with another unexpected twist. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands. The moment I entered the room, she looked up, eyes red and puffy. "Jake, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. I felt a surge of anxiety wash over me, but I steeled myself. "What is it, Sarah?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. I think I made a mistake," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to be with Tyler anymore. I want to work on us." My heart raced, a mix of confusion and anger bubbling to the surface. "And what makes you think I'm open to that?" I replied, crossing my arms. "You've made your choice, Sarah. You can't just decide to come back when it's convenient for you." "No, listen," she pleaded, standing up. I was so caught up in the moment in something that felt exciting, but I realize now that I miss what we had. I miss you. Her words felt hollow, and I could see a flicker of desperation in her eyes. This was not the first time she had tried to manipulate the situation. You miss me, or do you miss the comfort of our life together? I shot back, frustration seeping into my voice. You need to understand the damage you've done. I know, and I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, she cried, her voice breaking. But I want to make it right. I'll do whatever it takes. For a moment, I felt the weight of her words. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her a chance to earn my trust back. But the other part of me was still processing the betrayal, the hurt. That lingered just beneath the surface. You can't just expect me to forgive and forget, I said slowly, trying to keep my emotions in check. It's going to take time. And just like that, the tension in the room shifted. I could see the determination in her eyes as she nodded, admitting that she understood. But in that moment, I felt a mixture of relief and doubt. Was I willing to open the door to this broken relationship again? Or had I already begun to move on, too far down my own path to turn back? That night, I stayed up late thinking about everything. I realized that my life had taken a significant turn since Sarah's affair. I had uncovered a version of myself that was strong and capable of healing, and I had formed connections with others who had faced similar struggles. The idea of going back to the life I once had felt suffocating, yet the prospect of rebuilding something with Sarah was daunting. In my heart, I knew I had to make a choice. I would have to confront the emotional chaos that threatened to pull me in different directions. I needed to decide whether I would take the plunge into the unknown or stand firm in my newfound confidence. One thing was clear: I was no longer willing to let someone else dictate my happiness. Whatever I chose, I had to do it for me. The days that followed Sarah's emotional plea felt like a strange limbo, a standoff between what was and what could be. I was caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to believe that Sarah was genuinely remorseful, that she wanted to repair the damage she had caused. But the other part of me, the part that had found strength in vulnerability and connection with my audience, screamed that I was better off without her. We tried to communicate more, but it often felt forced. I noticed that Sarah had changed in small ways. She was more attentive and even volunteered to help with my TikTok videos, offering ideas and suggestions. At first, I appreciated her involvement, but it quickly turned into a source of irritation. I didn't want her trying to insert herself back into my life as if nothing had happened. It felt disingenuous, like she was trying to reclaim her place rather than genuinely engage with my healing process. One chilly Friday evening, I was preparing to shoot a new video about self-love, a topic that had become increasingly important to me. I had planned on discussing the importance of setting boundaries and recognizing one's worth. Sarah walked in, a bright smile on her face, and I could tell she was excited to join in. "I thought I could help you with this one," she said, practically bouncing on her heels. I hesitated. "Sarah, I appreciate that you want to help, but this is a personal journey for me. I think it would be best if I did this one alone." Her smile faltered, and I could see her disappointment. "But I'm trying to be supportive. I thought we were working on us." "Working on us doesn't mean you get to dictate how I heal," I shot back, feeling the weight of my frustration rise again. "I need space to find my own voice." For a moment, the silence hung heavy in the air. I could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to reconcile, but also seemed to want to control the narrative. It was a delicate balance, and I didn't want to tip the scales back toward a relationship built on desperation and manipulation. "I just don't want you to shut me out," she said quietly. "I'm trying to change." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside me. "I get that, but real change takes time. You need to show me you're serious about this, not just tell me." That night, as I recorded my video, I poured my heart into it. I spoke about self-love, boundaries, and the importance of prioritizing oneself after betrayal. I shared anecdotes from my life, the lessons I had learned, and the journey I was still on. In that moment, I felt liberated, knowing that I was speaking my truth. Each word felt like a step forward, a reaffirmation of my commitment to myself. After I posted the video, it exploded. The comments and messages flooded in, and I felt a sense of validation that I hadn't experienced in a long time. People connected with my words, sharing their own struggles with self-worth and healing. I was helping others, and in turn, I was helping myself. However, the dynamic at home remained strained. Sarah continued to express her desire to work on our marriage, but I felt increasingly conflicted. I was enjoying my independence and newfound confidence, yet I couldn't completely shut the door on our past. One evening, as I was preparing to film another video, Sarah walked in and sat down next to me. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her expression serious. "Sure," I replied warily, sensing the gravity of the moment. "I want to be honest with you," she began, her fingers intertwined nervously. "I know I messed up. I wasn't thinking about the consequences of my actions, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting. I realize now how much I took you for granted." I looked at her, searching for sincerity in her eyes. "What are you really saying, Sarah?" "I want to fight for us, for our marriage," she said, her voice firming with determination. "But I also know I have to earn your trust back. I don't want to lose you." The tension in my chest tightened. Here she was, wanting to rebuild what we had, but could I trust her? The memories of her betrayal danced in the back of my mind, taunting me. I had come so far in my healing process, and the thought of going back into a relationship that had caused me so much pain felt suffocating. But at the same time, I had to acknowledge the evolution we had both undergone during this tumultuous period. "I appreciate you being honest with me," I replied cautiously. "But I'm not sure what that means for us. I need to focus on myself right now. I can't just jump back into things as if nothing happened." "I understand," she said softly, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm committed to doing the work. I want us to be good together again." Her words lingered in the air, and for the first time I felt a flicker of hope mixed with doubt. Perhaps we could navigate this together, but I wasn't willing to sacrifice my growth for the sake of familiarity. I needed to establish firm boundaries and ensure that any move forward was built upon mutual respect, trust, and understanding. As I looked at her, I realized that this was a pivotal moment in our relationship. I had to decide whether I wanted to give her another chance or continue on my path of self-discovery. It was a daunting choice, but deep down, I knew that whatever I chose would set the trajectory for my future. "Let's take it one step at a time," I said finally, feeling a sense of resolve. "If we're going to try, we have to be honest and clear about our feelings. I need to know you're genuinely invested in making this work, not just as a way to escape the fallout of your actions." Sarah nodded, her eyes wide and earnest. "I promise I will be. I'll show you I'm committed to change." As I went to bed that night, I felt a mixture of excitement and fear. The road ahead was uncertain, but the clarity of my journey thus far had taught me the importance of self-love, boundaries, and above all, the power of resilience. I was ready to face whatever came next, both in my personal journey and in my relationship with Sarah. Whatever the outcome, I knew I was stronger than I had ever been, and that was a victory in itself. In the weeks that followed our conversation, Sarah and I cautiously began to navigate the fragile terrain of our relationship. It wasn't easy. There were days filled with laughter and connection, and others clouded with doubt and tension. Each day felt like a new chapter in a story I hadn't wanted to write, yet somehow found myself immersed in. We established ground rules. Conversations were open, honest, and sometimes uncomfortable. I shared my feelings about her betrayal, how it had shattered my trust, and she listened intently. In turn, she opened up about her motivations for her infidelity. It was a process of peeling back layers, and while it felt like we were making progress, I had to guard my heart against the fear of getting hurt again. Through this journey of rebuilding, I was also mindful of my own personal growth. My TikTok platform had blossomed into something I never imagined it could be. I had connected with thousands of people, sharing my story and helping others navigate their pain. My followers were rooting for me, and with each video, I felt more empowered. I shared my experiences but also focused on the nuances of love, what it meant to rebuild trust and to forgive. One evening, I decided to film a video discussing the complexities of forgiveness in relationships. Forgiveness isn't just about letting go. It's about recognizing the pain and choosing to move forward either together or apart, I said, feeling the weight of my own words. It's a choice we make every day. But remember, it's okay to prioritize your own healing first. After posting that video, the comments flooded in. People resonated with my message, sharing their own experiences with forgiveness and betrayal. I felt a sense of pride, not just in my content, but in who I was becoming. I was no longer just Jake, the husband whose wife cheated. I was Jake, a man who had faced the storm and emerged stronger. Meanwhile, Sarah worked diligently to show me her commitment. She enrolled in therapy both individually and as a couple. I admired her efforts, but I remained cautious. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. I learned to appreciate the small victories, her willingness to listen, her desire to change, and the way she expressed gratitude for my patience. But despite our progress, there were moments when I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. One such night, as we lay in bed, I felt an overwhelming need to confront my fears. "Sarah," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "do you think we can truly make this work?" She turned to me, her eyes earnest. "I want to believe we can. I'm committed to doing the work, and I hope you can see that." I nodded, but doubt lingered. It's not just about wanting it. It's about truly understanding what we both need moving forward. "I need to know that you're not just in this for comfort. I need to see you actively choosing us every day." Her gaze softened and she took my hand. "I understand. I don't want to just fall back into old patterns. This is different for me. I want us to be better." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to feel the warmth of love and trust enveloping us again, but the past loomed like a shadow. I had to remind myself that healing wasn't linear. It took time, effort, and a willingness to face discomfort. As the season changed, so did our dynamic. We found ourselves smiling more, sharing laughter, and even venturing out together. I introduced her to some of my TikTok friends, and she began to understand the community I had built. It was uplifting to see her engage with my followers, and I noticed the genuine enthusiasm in her eyes. She was starting to embrace not just my journey but our shared experience. Yet, a part of me still felt the weight of uncertainty. I couldn't shake the fear that perhaps we were forcing something that shouldn't be. One afternoon, I decided to take a step back and reflect. I went for a long walk, letting my thoughts swirl and settle. I reached a park and sat on a bench, watching families play and couples laugh. The warmth of the sun on my skin felt comforting, and in that moment, clarity struck me. What I realized was that while I had been focused on the potential of our relationship, I had also been neglecting my own needs. I needed to recognize the possibility of moving on, not just for Sarah's sake but for my own growth. I had started to carve a space for myself, one that was no longer defined my past but by my present and future. When I returned home that evening, I knew I had to speak with Sarah. "I think we need to talk," I said, my voice steady. She glanced up from the couch, concern etched across her face. "What's wrong?" "I feel like we're in this limbo," I began. "We're working on things, but I also think we need to be honest about where we're headed. I can't keep holding onto the past while trying to build a future." Her expression softened and she nodded thoughtfully. "I agree. I felt that tension too. It's hard to know if we're forcing something. I think it's important for both of us to have the freedom to decide what we want," I continued. "If we're going to move forward, let's do it consciously and not just out of obligation. I want you to be happy whether that's with me or not." Tears filled her eyes and she took a deep breath. "I respect that. I've been so focused on fixing things that I didn't consider what we really want. I don't want you to feel trapped." As we spoke candidly, I felt a weight lift. Our conversation wasn't about blame or guilt. It was about understanding and respect. We acknowledged that while we had made progress, we still had choices to make. We could either commit to rebuilding or give ourselves the freedom to explore what life would look like apart. As the days passed, we both spent time contemplating our next steps. I continued to focus on my personal growth, creating content that resonated deeply with my audience. Sarah, too, began to explore her own passions outside of our relationship. She found joy in painting, expressing emotions through color and texture. I admired her creativity and encouraged her to pursue it fully. One evening, we sat on the couch, watching the sunset through our living room window. "I think I've come to a decision," I said softly. "I want to focus on myself. I want to keep growing, and I think it's best for both of us if we take a step back." Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes, but she nodded. "I understand. I think that's the healthiest choice, and I'll always care about you no matter what." In that moment, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had navigated through the storm, emerging with clarity and strength. Our journey had taught me invaluable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of prioritizing oneself. I realized that sometimes the bravest choice isn't about holding on but about letting go. As I moved forward, I carried the memories of our relationship with me, but I also embraced the freedom to write my own story. I was no longer defined by betrayal. I was defined by my resilience, my growth, and my willingness to open my heart to new possibilities. In the end, it wasn't about revenge or payback on social media. It was about reclaiming my life and finding joy in the unknown. I had discovered a new version of myself, one that could stand tall, even in the face of heartache. And as I stepped into the future, I felt ready to embrace whatever came next.